we're trying to figure out ultimately what is.
It's still a mystery as to why it took them. Hey everyone, I'm Lauren Conlin, and with me, as always, for some coffee and crime is Jarrett Ferrantino. Hey, Jarrett.
Hey, Lauren. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Yes, good morning to the chat. I'm in Florida right now, so I don't have my microphone. I've got my AirPods on, so hopefully you can see me and hear me, and everything is all good, right?
All
Yes?
good. I could see and hear you.
Okay, great. And hi again to everyone in the chat. Trial Junkies, Dark Side, Sinead, Sheila, Hermit Sal, of course, as usual. I want to make sure I didn't forget anybody. Carrie, good to see you. Afton, Texas Proud. Okay, so I do have my mini mic. It's always it's always on me. Okay, Sinead, I decided not to use it for this. I didn't want to hold it or hook it up. But Jarrett, what's going on?
No, well, the JFK stuff is crazy. I'm just sitting in my office and people keep texting me about they're going through the JFK documentation. So if anybody's ever tried to tackle a file like that, here's the problem. So when you get that, you have reports and what's called attachments. So when you get a piece of information, you may not know until you organize the entire thing what it goes with. So you can read a piece of information in a vacuum and be like, oh my God, it's a conspiracy theory or something like that. But you got to know why the FBI or the CIA or whoever is interviewing this particular person. So that's what's going to be the challenge on this stuff. It's like getting everyone to get it organized and manage it.
I agree. I mean, I was very overwhelmed. I started last night and I was like, cool, I'll see you guys all next December. This is going to take forever. But I did try to put, a chunk of it into Chat GPT to get just an idea of what it was. And it was really bad. Chat GPT did not explore some of the nuances. I mean, so far, what I have gathered is that the CIA knew Lee Harvey Oswald a lot more than they let on. That there's a lot of blame on, I'm not used to these, a lot of blame on Russia. There's, a guy named Sergey, I think I tweeted this out, claimed to know about JFK, the assassination, and also MLK. And there was a call 25 minutes allegedly from overseas to the FBI prior to the assassination that was ignored. I mean, there's a lot, I feel like. But again, I only went through, half of it, not even.
Yeah, I'm no expert, but I know this. There's been one person that ever defected from the United States to Russia and then repatriated back to America, and that's Lee Harvey Oswald. So,
yeah. And the Mexico trip that was like, I mean, it was just weird. It's like, I don't know. I feel like this is interesting and I don't know. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but it's kind of natural to me to go that way. I know you're more of a realist, I guess.
I think we said this, but when they asked Robert F. Kennedy during his congressional examination to become secretary, they said to him, "Are you a conspiracy theorist?" I said, "You're asking a Kennedy if he's a conspiracy theorist. His uncle and his father were assassinated. He cannot get the answers from the government, and you have the gall to ask this man if he's a conspiracy." Conspiracy theories were born with his family. So I'm anxious to see some of the documentation. I want to see the reports that come out and then media reports that come out. And I promise, before I say anything, I will go back and look at the documentation myself. So
perfect. Maybe by next week we can do a deeper dive into this. If everything is
it's not going to be next week. It's a lot of stuff.
Fine. Well, we could start there. I mean, we'll see what's going on. But today, why we really are here is because we wanted to cover Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain, as Jarrett and I were on top of the story from the very beginning, and we kind of knew this was the direction that it was headed. It's very tragic, of course, horrible. But I believe that Nikki's sisters and her family are, I don't want to say relieved, but it's bittersweet for them because they really wanted the world to know that Nikki would never leave her children on her own. She wouldn't. So, I had the timeline that I had originally. I made this with Kathy Decker, who is awesome. She's actually local. But this timeline I found to be really helpful. I don't know if you guys remember this when we first went over it, but it just discusses Nikki's disappearance and just sort of the strange things that happened afterwards. Or I guess I don't know, Jarrett, how would you want to describe some of the things that happened with her husband?
I think you can't look, you cannot look at the timeline without knowing what was going on before. So as we've said in the past, Nikki was a key witness in an aggravated assault, very serious aggravated assault trial against her husband. He had alleged to have beaten her severely over a period of significant hours. That matter was upcoming, and she vanished off the face of the earth. So that's what starts the timeline. It's like May of 2024, Nikki is expected to provide information, meet with prosecutors, and move this case forward, and she's gone to the wind. And
that's correct.
As tragic, we were under no delusions about this case. There was some uncredible and incredible reports that you and I had heard that she was alive. Anytime you have missing persons reports, you get these kind of out there, sometimes speculation that they're alive or they were seen somewhere. There was some of that, but realistically, I think everyone kind of accepted the fact that this was ultimately going to become a homicide investigation, which is a big moment. Although it's no surprise, it's significant because of some of the other things we're going to discuss.
Right. And just going back, so this domestic violence, I'll say alleged incident because it never went to trial. It occurred in December of 2023. And as you said, Nikki disappeared in May of 2024, and she was actually set to testify against Tyler McCain, her husband, in June of 2024. So yeah, that timeline, it's kind of like, it's hard to ignore. There's one person that would seemingly have motive to unalive Nikki, or whatever you want to call it at this point. And, also I'm not trying to perpetuate any rumors. However, I think that what I'm about to say is kind of beyond the rumor mill. I think it's pretty well known that this area in Redding, California does have some issues with drugs, and maybe Nikki saw something that she shouldn't have seen as well, and somebody wanted to silence her. That had crossed my mind based on some things that I heard. Go ahead.
I think one of the things you have to know, we talk about the motive for Tyler, right? Mm-hmm. He had opportunity too, because although he was estranged from her and these charges were pending, the night Nikki disappeared, she was back in the McCain orbit because there was a family member in the hospital. She was said to be with Tyler's mom. So it's one thing to have motive. If you're on the other side of the country, great, you have an alibi. He had opportunity. That's another significant point why suspicion has fallen upon Tyler. And again, allegedly abused Nikki, assaulted Nikki, and then you have this cloud of suspicion on him. And then some of his behavior in back to your timeline, in what had gone on with Tyler, with regard to police involvement, the fires, things of that nature, which only added to that cloud of suspicion that continues to hang over him more so than ever at this point.
Yes. And just quickly, I'm not going to go through all this timeline in detail, but I'll just refresh everyone's memory because it's been a while. So May 7th, there's a court hearing for Nikki. Or at this point, sorry, there's a court hearing for Nikki and Tyler. He pleads not guilty to 4 felony domestic violence charges. And Nikki tells her sister that she plans to divorce Tyler. May 18th, the last contact Nikki had was a text message to her sister Chloe around 12:35 a.m. saying that she's driving her mother-in-law's car from the hospital to a location that we are not sure of. So her brother-in-law was in the hospital, which is what you mentioned. And this is interesting. I've always thought this was interesting that a passerby saw Nikki walking at 7:05 a.m. While driving northbound past the flea market. She was going south, turning into an entrance on Latona and the east side. And this passerby claimed she was wearing no makeup, crying, and a black shirt and a short skirt, and the color was unknown. And you know what? Something else, Jarrett, I just want to talk about for a minute is the fact that this was the only information that we got about her last known attire. The fact that Tyler's family saw her that night and didn't, I guess, give us any information. And I say us, the public, the police, I assume it would go to the police and the police would tell the public. We never knew what she was wearing last. Is that weird? Her family or his family was with her.
I mean, so the information comes from this rando passerby who sees her in a fleeting moment and provides this description. But the folks that were claimed to have been with her in her company at a momentous event at the hospital, where you're going to see what someone has on, obviously, and you're going to spend a considerable amount of time with them. So yes, that was certainly curious to me. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't provide that information to the investigators. It just means it never became public that they did. And they didn't let on that information was ever conveyed. So I'm going to say it wasn't.
Yeah, I guess why would the police not share that out if it was conveyed to them? It's not a secret. We all want to find Nikki. That's usually one of the first things that you see, right? A description of the missing persons along with what they were wearing last.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I thought that was strange.
And you know, some of the other things about this case is that text message that came from her phone. We don't know that it came from her. So you have to understand that. Was that text message conveying something? Was it saying she's somewhere else? Was it to create a misconception of her whereabouts and who she was with? I don't know. I mean, no one spoke to her, you know, and no one has spoken to her since to whether or not she can corroborate that.
I think her sisters thought that it did sound like her in the text message, but I mean, again, you never know. Somebody could be very good at imitating somebody. I've seen, yeah.
Right.
So, Nikki's car was found on May 25th. It was a Chevy Avalanche, and it was located by the Tehama County Sheriff's Office about 45 minutes west of the Wind River Casino. And Tyler was arrested around this time for violating a PO. So that was also interesting. And then about 2 weeks after Nikki's disappearance, the Shasta County Sheriff's Office releases a public statement declaring Nikki a missing persons. There are billboards. What else? I'm not going to go through some of this stuff. Sorry. I mean, if you guys want to, I'll go through. Hold on. The second slide. If you want to read it on your own, go right ahead. I'm just going to kind of skip through here. There's a court hearing that's postponed. And this was to allow Nikki to possibly, quote, come home. But eventually, the charges are dismissed in July of 2024. And in July of 2024 as well, there were multiple fires on the McCain property. And one of the fires spanned over 98 acres. And that's pretty big, I think, for a fire that did not result in any arrests. And it was negligence, let's say. Jarrett, am I wrong with that?
No, and Tyler, it's not like Tyler wasn't there. He was
right.
Part of the origin of those fires involved Tyler, whether or not they were arson or not. The guy burns down 90 acres. So there were two fires in that area. One for sure was tied to Tyler. So again, you just have 90 acres burned on your property. Meanwhile, this cloud of suspicion is hanging over you. Worth noting, significant. What happens in a fire? Things burn. Things are obliterated. Things are lost, like evidence in the event that he was involved in this.
I was just going to say evidence is destroyed. And let me point something else out here. So you heard me say Tyler was arrested for violating, parole. And then he was arrested again for driving with a suspended license and violating a court order later in July. This was July 31st. So it seems like police are watching him. They're trying to get him on something here. They're trying, you know what I mean? Like he seems to really be on their radar because he keeps getting arrested.
So this reminds me of like the John Wayne Gacy thing where the cops were following him. They ended up holding him on a marijuana charge while they were searching his house. If you remember that story, but they're watching him clearly. And one of the violations, and correct me if I'm wrong, was a firearm violation because There was a court order barring him while on bail, facing the very charges that involve Nikki, to not possess firearms. He gets clipped for having guns. So here we go. You have this person, again, under that cloud of suspicion, violating a court order involving the very person that's missing. And that is a big violation. A firearms charge in violation of a court order. Why don't you want someone in that situation to have a firearm? If there's a protection from abuse, if they're like that moment where Nikki declared she's divorcing or finally leaving Tyler after, which was a tumultuous relationship. He was alleged to have been a brutal domestic. Mm-hmm. She's now announcing to the world, or to Kay and Chloe, she's saying, I'm leaving him. That is a very dangerous time for individuals in that situation. Extremely dangerous, because that is the pivotal moment where she finds her voice. She makes her plans known. She discloses the situation to third parties. I've had homicides that happen at that moment when the PFAs are in effect. I mean, they're awful, awful. But that is, for an abuser, a very desperate time because they're losing that control.
Wow, that's a really great point. That's a great point. And just to answer your question, Sinead, I don't necessarily know if Tyler participated in any of these searches. I heard he didn't, but again, I wasn't there. But no, I don't think he was on the ground like a lot of people were. And he certainly didn't speak out until the press conference last week that we played a part of, when he said, I don't really know what to say. And it was pretty offensive, in my opinion. But I want to also point out that, you know, he was scheduled to have these hearings, and you know, these hearings were they were scheduled, and then somehow they were canceled. So I don't exactly know what happened there behind the scenes, but he always seems to skirt around trouble. I mean, maybe that could be connections, family. I don't know, but it is coincidental, I guess, if you believe in coincidences. But a mattress, it looks like, was turned in August as well as a tip or a lead. This is new information. And as you know, Jarrett, and Brian Fitzgibbons, our friend from USPA, who has been amazing in this case and still is, law enforcement has been very tight-lipped this entire time. I mean, I don't know, Jarrett, do you think that they've been more tight-lipped than you've seen in other missing persons cases, or this is pretty average?
Well, they have certainly been quiet with regard to updates and stuff, and you just don't know why. Are they holding? Here's why I've seen that happen. They hold on to information that would only be known to a killer, for example, so that information doesn't become public. That is oftentimes why they hold their cards close to their vest. I don't know why. But really, this case has gotten most of the attention it's gotten because of Kay and Chloe, because of Brian, who's an investigator and friend of ours that has been working with the family. So they have kept Nikki's story out there. And that's not to suggest the police want it to go away, but by way of an update, with the exception of last week, they've gone dark on this thing.
Yes, I totally agree. Totally agree. And Rich, just to answer your question, the McCain property was set on fire. I don't know if it was, I guess they're still investigating. CAL FIRE is investigating, and we don't know what happened there. But I also want to point out that, Jarrett, in September of 2024, you and Brian and I introduced Douglas McGregor, who is a renowned geoprofiler, to this case. And Brian had contacted Shasta County and saying, here is Doug, here's his team. This is what they do. They specialize in finding, I guess, or I shouldn't say finding, narrowing down where law enforcement can potentially find a body, potentially find a person. And Doug's team works on reward money, basically, and they split it with the family. So it seemed kind of like a win-win situation, but I guess Shasta County wasn't ready for that yet. They had something else in mind. Who knows? I guess we'll find out.
I thought he made some great points. He would have added something to, there's the politics of prosecution. Everybody is very guarded. Everybody wants to be the hero. I mean, that happens sometimes. Yeah. And Tad DiBiase, too. We talked to Tad about, could you move forward on a prosecution for homicide without Nikki's body? and things of that nature too. So those are two individuals that, as this case develops, Shasta County, would greatly benefit from consulting with people like that, I think.
Totally. It's heartbreaking too to think about. And I know politics are involved, but it's like wanting to take credit for this investigation when it's like her kids want answers, her family wants answers, just all hands on deck. It's
and when I say
tough.
politics and prosecution, that's what I mean. I'm not talking about red state, blue state stuff. I'm talking about like jurisdictional pissing matches and things of that nature. And really, that's what it's about. And you hate to say it, but these are human beings that are involved in these things. And people want to be a hero. People don't like other people. People don't want people from out of the area coming in and telling them how to do things. It's a lot of that. A lot.
Yeah, it's awful. And I totally understood what you said. So yeah. And then, we've got, there was a fundraiser in September of 2024 for Nikki, and the McCain family didn't show up. Now, whether or not they didn't show up because they did feel targeted, they felt like everybody was watching them or blaming them. There's probably a number of reasons there. But then there was another fire in September. I think it was September 29th on Rancheria Road behind the Clear Creek Market. And there were some sightings of Tyler at different events and places. And I think, like I said, people are really watching him. And finally, in October of 2024, Nikki was listed on the California Missing Persons page website. I don't know why that took so long. Jarrett, is that kind of normal? They wait a while?
No, I don't know why. I think that whoever runs that, there was a bit of a breakdown of communication there. She should have been on that. I mean, she was a missing person long before then.
Okay. And hi, Kathy's here. So Kathy, I'm so glad you're here. Kathy has been instrumental, like I said, in helping with this timeline. And she's just been such a great voice for Nikki and for her family. So Kathy, jump in with anything and everything that you might have. You're amazing. Okay. So this timeline, we kind of stopped it in October because, again, there was not much going on, as you said. There have been, Brian's received tips, some interesting tips that I guess, we can't share now. But I remember hearing some of those tips and I was like, wow, I had hope for a minute. They were weird, but I was hopeful.
I do like when Brian shares them with us, by the way.
I mean, he gets like wild stuff that comes in and you're just like, what? And it's interesting because, you have to look into it, right? Like I'm assuming everybody looks into everything at this point when it comes to a missing mother who's been gone this long. It's just kind of like, where do you even begin?
Well, everything's on the table right now. There's nothing some of the stuff's not in this particular case, but some of the stuff is pretty outrageous, but you have no reason not to look into things because you just don't know. There are no concrete answers to date. Right.
So finally, after a few days after the press conference, this was, I believe it was last Thursday or Friday, the FBI raided the McCain property off of Anderson Road. And Chloe and Kay are Nikki's sisters, but Kay had sent me a message and she said from a local that was waiting outside. And I mean, this was a spectacle. Like everybody was watching and everybody was, so relieved. And I can imagine it's just like, finally, So onlookers said they saw 4 different evidence bags get put inside of the FBI van. They saw a carpet shampooer that they took into evidence. And the evidence was taken from a Range Rover and a tool shed as well. I'm not super familiar with the property. I know that it's big, it's spacious. So they do have all these different sections, I guess. They said the FBI was wearing the orange light glasses to search for the presence of blood. And then they took in a box of lots of boxes in black evidence bags as well. So let's see. Okay, there's Kathy. Yeah. Bags and boxes, a carpet cleaner. I mean, like I have carpet cleaner. I have 2 little kids. I use it a lot. Is that, I don't know. Like I use it literally a lot.
So let me tell you what that means. First of all, they're not there on a wild goose chase. In order to get onto that property, and now we have very informed viewers and listeners.
We do.
I apologize if I'm being elementary here. But in order to get onto that property and into that garage, which is a detached garage, you need to have probable cause, which is a legal term, okay, that you need to have information that supports the government entering into that property that leads them to the inside of that house and to that garage. Okay, you can't just walk onto the property and say, oh, while we're here, let's go into the detached garage. The areas to be searched are clearly defined on a search warrant. And they're not just there as decoration. They're there because it broadens or points to exactly where the probable cause the investigators have leads them to believe their search will lead to relevant and discoverable evidence into the homicide of Nikki McCain. That's why they were there. And that's what this probable cause search would ultimately lead to, if that's why they were there. We're speculating, but it looks like it was the week after. Those press conferences kick up dust and get people talking again. The information that would have led to a probable cause standard and a search warrant has been developed recently. Okay, it can't be old information. It's got to be good information. It's got to be information that says to a judge, you got it, go in there and see if there's evidence there. My speculation is someone is talking and providing information. Someone in their orbit has either been in trouble recently or is looking for a break and knows there's trouble coming down the pike, or was involved in this thing and got nervous after the press conference and started talking.
It's interesting that you just said that. And like you said before, we have very informed viewers, and some of our viewers right now are local to the Reading area. And you just said this. You said somebody may have gotten in trouble and started talking. And Too Tall, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, into the rumors, but this is Tyler's good friend. You know, if his girlfriend was arrested recently, I mean, this is, again, I don't have these arrest records, Trial Junkie. I am just pinning this as your opinion for now. But yeah, I mean, you're right, Jarrett. That's what you said immediately when this happened. You said, oh, someone's definitely talking. And I was like, yeah, and Brian thought the same thing
because
too. Right?
This information, you can't play games when you're asking for a warrant. It has to be supported. And like when I say it has to be current information, old information is stale. It can't be stale. There's got to be something that brought them onto that property. So was it confirmed? And I apologize, the warrant's not public. It was confirmed. First of all, it became a homicide the same week. And it was confirmed they were there for Nikki's case, right?
Yes. Confirmed.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So that all of what I just said means they met that threshold of probable cause in the minds of a judge. And so basically prosecutors and investigators write up this affidavit in support of a search warrant. They go to a judge who sits and says, okay, you got it. Go do the search. It can't be old. It's got to be relevant, and it's got to be reliable. And that's what we have here. Somebody in that inner circle knows something and was talking. There's no way you'd get there without that after all this time. Cell phone records wouldn't necessarily do it because you had those. This is something new.
Right. And Jarrett, when did the FBI jump in? I mean, I am assuming that maybe Shasta County pulled them in from the start because they knew something and that's why they were being so secretive. I just was I was happy, obviously, but I was like, okay, so the FBI just got involved or, you know, and I think Afton brought this up. I don't know what she said exactly. The FBI has a higher bar than state police, don't they? And this is in terms of a search warrant. I mean, so it's kind of like
no.
Okay.
The standard is still, this is a Shasta County search warrant. So the standard isn't a federal standard. It's always a probable cause. Now, do they have a higher standard to get involved in a particular case? That's correct. Like to tap the FBI on the shoulder and get them involved in a case, they can assist in a case or they could take over. Now, the cases that I've been a part of, and even through the Brittany Drexel case, for example, Brittany was missing for 13 years down in South Carolina. At some point, the FBI took over the investigation. They were fantastic because when that happens, you are now availed of all the technology the FBI has, all the resources they have. So even if they're not running point on an investigation, if they're assisting, you reap the benefit of all of their resources oftentimes. So I don't know exactly when they got involved, but I can tell you this. There's certain things that would bring the federal government into this case. Some of the lands are tribal lands that may involve federal jurisdictional issues. The guns, the drugs, that kind of stuff can bring the feds in. There may be an inquiry at the federal level to some of the drug activities that's going on in the region, and they tied this case into it. That's just pure speculation, but I've seen it happen before because there's not only is there a fire here, there's smoke with regard to these folks' involvements in guns and drugs. So that really could have brought the FBI in. Here's the other thing. When the FBI is conducting grand jury investigations on related individuals, by related, I mean associates of Tyler McCain or people in the rumor mill about drugs and things of that nature in their inner circle. They're conducting interviews. They're putting people under oath in front of the grand jury. They're providing information. That's also something not every state investigator has.
Okay. And Kathy pointed out that the FBI said they were using the FBI resources since June. I was not aware of that. Also, Jarrett, I thought this was a great question. HSI, why is Homeland Security involved? I mean, is this like a cyber issue or I mean, what?
Again, the scope of those departments' job descriptions broadens every day. So something about this case brought in Homeland Security. And again, it could be something as simple as somebody that knows these folks has a pending drug investigation that has a component down to Mexico. Who knows? But Homeland Security, once you get into that federal realm, you can work with those departments pretty readily. And the definition of when they can assist is pretty broad.
Okay. I also just texted Brian. I saw him in the chat. I was like, hey, jump in if you can. I just sent him a link. So hopefully he can jump in and just share anything else with us that he has come across. You know, I have also been, you know, briefly communicating with Chloe and Kay. And I also want to just point out how incredible they are, how strong they are, and how also certain people in this chat, again, Kathy, Mike, I mean, you guys are so amazing. And I can't imagine how thankful that they are to have a community that involves people like you guys, because you guys are so great. And I just think it's awesome.
And that stuff, don't think that is, I know I've said this before, like having been involved in cases like this, particularly the Drexel case, like when families don't go away and keep the pressure on and keep going to the press and keep looking for answers, I always say this. Raymond Moody, who killed Brittany Drexel, made the statement, I wish she would just go away, when talking about Brittany's mom, Dawn. I mean, that's the killer who said it. Like before he was caught, like it shakes people. You know, they think the longer this goes on, they're going to go away. In a press conference like that. And look, it happened it happened in the Drexel case. It happened in Delphi. Anytime they did a press conference, it really takes things back to the front of mind and gets people talking again.
Yeah, definitely. And that when you said that to me before, and it really did, it made sense, and it gave me chills, because you have these mothers and these families who just aren't giving up. Yeah. And it drives these guys crazy. Brian's here. Okay. Love it. Brian, hi.
Oh, great. Hey, Brian.
Hey, what's up, guys? How are you?
Good.
We're good. So happy to see you. You've seen some of the stuff we've been discussing, but please add anything that you think would be helpful.
Yeah, sure. Hey, first of all, I'll say, you know, I'm heartened to see these developments in the case. Number one, when I saw Tyler take the stage the other day in that public press briefing, you can tell that something was happening, right? That's a dramatic departure from the behavior that we had seen from him leading up to that point. So, you know, I was immediately wondering what the impetus for his getting in front of the cameras was. There has to be something there. That this was seemingly of some benefit to his defense, and we know that he's being advised by a defense attorney along the way. So, whatever pressured him to get in front of those cameras, I immediately thought would be a good thing. Then to see the FBI publicly joining the search, and I'll back up and say, in all of our experience, and Jarrett, I'm sure you would echo this sentiment, when you see the FBI publicly involved, you're seeing the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so
absolutely,
the resources, the manpower, the resources, the assets that the Federal Bureau of Investigation brings to bear is tremendous. Okay, so when they're slapping on that blue jacket with yellow FBI and hopping in front of news cameras at that press conference, and then a public, search warrant being executed, and they got the yellow jackets on for a reason, right? To let people know that they're there. Those aren't simply functional, in my opinion. That's a message being sent that there has to be quite a bit more information coming out. And, I'll reach back to the conversation that the three of us had with Tad Tobias, that when there's no body, these things take time, right? The reason that Shasta County was close to the chest, and I know I was unpopular in some of these opinions, for pushing folks to remain patient here, is that they may be lacking pieces of physical evidence. They don't know where Nikki is, and because of that, they have to hold some of that back in order to validate witness statements that come forward. So. You think about Tyler's periphery and what we know of the folks that he's around and their consistent troubles with the law. Somebody stepped on a landmine somewhere, and it sounds like somebody's talking.
Yes, that's you probably heard Jarrett say that. I think you said you agreed with that. Somebody's
he doesn't
talking.
need to hear me say it. He knows. He's been around enough of these things.
Yeah, and we, the three of us have these side texts, and that seemed to be the consensus. But Brian, do you have any idea why Homeland Security would be involved with this?
No, I don't know. I wouldn't read too much into that. Okay. You have task forces that get organized based on whatever assets and resources they have in that region. So. It could mean something. I've seen different agencies involved in a missing persons case before that it's like a gang task force that's involved, and it has nothing to do with a gang. It's just that they happen to have an evidence processing team that has the ability to do things faster than the local PD, for example. So. I think at this point, I would hold back any analysis on, at least coming from my end of why Homeland Security would be involved. Knee-jerk reaction would be that this is some kind of shared resource happening.
Okay. And before I get to Kathy's legal question, I did see something in the chat before, and I remember this now, but I guess Tyler or somebody, they had ripped up the carpet at one point, which if Tyler did that or somebody in Tyler's circle did that, that's a huge red flag. Why would you rip up carpet? Why would you know what I mean? Like it's that is what kind of gave me chills, really. I don't know what to think of that.
Well, if that's true, obviously that's a concerning thing. It smacks of somebody looking to cover something up if you're tearing out carpet or ripping up carpet.
Well, I want to make sure that it wasn't the FBI that ripped up carpet. Did they do that when they go through these searches? Do they rip up the carpet?
Well, they could, yeah. If they find an area of suspicious staining or something, they could remove a portion of flooring.
Okay, so Kathy, please jump in if you know the answer to this. Who ripped up the carpet first? Because yeah, I'm very curious here. So Kathy's question, let me just go back to this. It was when Tyler took Nikki in to recant her testimony of domestic violence to his lawyer and she wouldn't. Was client confidentiality waived? Is his lawyer now a witness and should recuse himself?
Well, first of all, that's a great question. So let me say this. I don't know the details of that. If there was a witness present, like an investigator, in addition to the lawyer and Tyler, that could be utilized as just an interview of a witness. It could also be viewed as a violation of Tyler's bail if he was present, and a violation of the protective order because he has undue influence over Nikki, having been accused of very violently abusing her. So I could tell you this, that does not look great. And if that happened, it could compromise that lawyer's ability to continue to defend Tyler, because if the motive was to silence her, she refused to be silenced at that meeting. That lawyer is a huge witness potentially. And you would have to argue the fact that Nikki was present waives the attorney-client privilege. Now, they will fight that, but that's a great thought, Kathy. It's a great question. So if that happened, it's a potential problem for his counsel. It's something that has to be addressed. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if that's the motive for this case and he's ultimately charged, that lawyer would be on the witness stand. Or I would try, and then we'd fight about the attorney-client privilege, and we would fight like hell to get that meeting, if it happened, before a jury.
So how does that move forward? Is that when there are finally charges brought, let's say charges are brought against Tyler, does the prosecutor handle that and dig into that further? How do you get this in front of people?
Oh, yeah. So
happened?
you would send somebody to interview the attorney. He'll say it's attorney-client privilege. You may serve him with a grand jury subpoena to get him to talk. He'll have to get his own counsel, things of that nature, if it goes that way. And if this happened the way Kathy's saying it happened, but it's occasioned by the investigators and prosecution. Believe me, if this is how it went down, the lawyer's not going to open that can of worms. You got to keep the pressure on them, though. But again, it's because it's not only that meeting happened, it's the fact that it factors into the ultimate potential motive for the murder. That's why it's a key event. And somebody out there said, well, you don't have to prove motive. Well, in this particular case, the motive is significant. It goes to the level of intent. So that lawyer could find himself in hot ethical soup.
Wow. That's really interesting. And just bringing up
if it happens.
Right. Right. And the carpet, Kathy said, Chloe said the piece of the carpet was gone after Nikki went missing. So yeah, that's concerning. That's very concerning. Ripping up pieces of carpet after your wife goes missing. That's just me. So yeah, I mean, at this point, guys, so let's say they FBI, HSI, police raid the McCain home last week, depending on what they find. I mean, do you guys think and are you hopeful that this will lead to some kind of arrest?
Brian, you take that one.
I am.
And how long? How long do you think it'll take? Seriously.
Yeah, that's $1 million question. I am very hopeful that this is a indicator that there will be an arrest in Nikki's case. For Shasta County to put out that press release and use the specific word homicide and to change the nature of this investigation, they're not doing that. They're not doing that willy-nilly. You know, this isn't. They're not just throwing something out there to keep the public happy. They're doing that very intentionally. This was all tied to, this. Let's just back up and look at the timeline. Tyler's behavior changes completely. He's now in front of the cameras talking, and I'm sorry if I'm off on the days, last week at some point, right? Shortly following that, Shasta County puts out a press release saying that Nikki's case has changed to a homicide investigation. Shortly right after that, a search warrant is served at the Olinda Road property. Okay, so what we're seeing is the tip of the iceberg. I have to believe that an arrest will be made. When I say soon, I'm not saying within hours or days. They're going to use this media attention and the heat that this is bringing on other witnesses in a very efficient manner at this point, right? Because if you know something, if you're associated with this in any way, they're going to be talking to you, and they're going to be, showing you the movement that's been taking place. So I would think that we're looking at an arrest and charges being made in short order here.
Wow. Well, I would like to play just a quick clip from Action News Now. I think they do great coverage on Nikki's case, and they have from the start. All of their articles are very detailed, and it's not a huge news outlet. I think it might be local to this area because I had never heard of it before this case. So I'll just play part of this so you guys can see. It's only a minute actually, so I'll play the whole thing. But
breaking news in the disappearance of Nikki McCain. Tonight, the Shasta County Sheriff's Office, for the first time, is officially calling it a homicide case. That announcement came after deputies, FBI agents, and Homeland Security agents served a search warrant today at the home of Nikki McCain and her husband Tyler McCain on Olinda Road in Happy Valley. This is viewer video submitted showing the moments agents first arrived on the scene this morning. Nikki McCain was first reported missing last May. And in a news release tonight, the Shasta County Sheriff's Office says that based on evidence collected and on interviews with family members and friends and acquaintances, detectives have determined that this is no longer a missing persons case, but a homicide investigation. Detectives have identified persons of interest. They are not, however, releasing names tonight of those people. They are asking for the public's help, identifying the driver of a red truck who may have picked up a man in the area of Highway 36 in the western portion of Tehama County between May 18th and May 25th of 2024. Breaking news in the
Sorry. Okay. So that is something that we didn't actually get to. Sorry, let me fix this. We didn't get to the red truck, which I guess I did not know about this red truck and this pickup until last week. Brian, did you know anything about this?
Yeah, we had heard about this. Now I want to separate. We hadn't heard specifically the story of that being the vehicle that picked him up.
Okay.
So, hey, there's information out there about the red truck. There's a lot of conjecture going on online. Hey, there are probably a lot of red trucks in that area. So, there's going to be a good amount of sifting that has to go through on some of these leads. But that, again, I want to back up and say, when we see that request from Shasta County, we need to process this, that what we're seeing is the tip of the iceberg. They're saying that, they're releasing that strategically for a reason, right? And that's guiding other conversations that they're having. Guys, unfortunately, I need to hop off here. Thank you. I just saw something come in. Thank you for everything you're doing, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to put the link for tips in the chat. So thanks, Brian. Appreciate you. Bye. So I am going to put the USPA link in the chat for tips. I'm also just going to repost the, I think it's the Shasta County number as well. Here is it's the Facebook link, and it links out to everything. So hopefully you guys can see that there.
So Lauren, one thing I think worth noting too, just to piggyback off what Brian said, also what you're looking for is after you get to that level of probable cause and you serve the actual warrant, you're looking for credibility builders. What were you told, and what, when you went in, did you find that is supported by what you were told? And now that adds to the witnesses, the witness, whoever's providing you the information, means they're telling you the truth, and may lead to other people that will talk. So when Brian says it's the tip of the iceberg, he's right. I mean, so, and when you do that search, if you don't find the smoking gun, if there's evidence that needs to be forensically processed, which it sounds like they took out of there, computers, things of that nature, those things take 30 to 60 days to develop sometimes. So that's why an arrest may not be imminent, but it may be coming.
Yeah, I hope it comes soon. I know that, you know, this is so difficult, and I'm sure her family just wants answers. Just, you know, it's like they have to get these answers, I feel like, to begin their grieving process and to start, you know, just explaining to the kids what it's just so awful. There's no winning in this situation. But Kathy has some information. Again, I think some of it might not be conclusive about Tyler and polygraph, so I won't post it right here just because I'm not sure. I think one of his cousins, Kathy said, took a polygraph on Friday. That seems to be conclusive. But also, you know, we have our thoughts on polygraphs. They don't always work. They're not always.
Well, they don't do anything for your investigation. Quite honestly, they're a tool to get people to talk, but they don't do anything oftentimes in your investigation to move the needle, and certainly aren't admissible in court. But they are a tool investigators use. If somebody bombs out on a polygraph, you know, they could be confronted with that fact and ultimately tell the truth. So are those accurate? Dandelions asks. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
You know,
right. I feel like the biggest tell is when you ask somebody, are you willing to take one? And they say yes or no. I think that's one of the biggest things. If they say no, you're like, red flag. But you're right. They're inadmissible in court. And, you know, I don't know, some polygraph administrators make the defendant or whatever, the POI, take a drug test before, because they take benzos and they can kind of calm themselves down and their heart rates chill and everything's all good.
I always think about George Costanza when he said, it's not a lie if you believe it. You know, like if you convince yourself, certainly you're not going to have the physical manifestations in the heart. So who knows? I mean, look, I think they've been tried and tested and somewhat accurate. I don't know, but are there people that can beat a polygraph? Yeah. Oh yeah, they're out there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, like I said, I did put the 2 numbers in the chat. If you have tips or anything that you can share with police about anything you know about Nikki, Tyler, anything about this case, I want answers for this. Like, I know I keep saying this, but her sisters are so sweet, and just the locals, you guys are so sweet. And it's been so heartbreaking to watch all of this unfold.
And I feel like Kay and Chloe have been so restrained. You know, I really think they could, because they want answers. You know, look, people lash out. They're standing up there with Tyler, who's under that cloud last week. And you're like, what are they like? What's going on there? Like, what conversation is had in the background, you know? But anyway, look, I'm hopeful. I'm more hopeful now than I was about this case. We've always been hopeful. Certainly, there's a lot of good people working really hard, but I'm hopeful we're going to get answers probably within the next 30 days.
You know, it's interesting that you just said that about her sisters. They are so classy up there with Tyler, next to Tyler, when it's kind of like, if that was me, I don't know that I could be that strong and that, I guess, I don't know, is the word classy, graceful? I don't know. I would just be like, well, I just feel like I don't know if I'd have it in me. But again, they want answers, and they know, they're so smart. They know that this is the way to get these answers. But yes, Sinead, I agree. Bring Nikki home. This is our hashtag, bring Nikki home. So for everyone in the chat, you know, who is on Twitter, Instagram, wherever, please spread the word about Nikki, about this case. I've been, I don't want to say happy, but I was relieved that Fox News picked it up, the New York Post. I mean, it's getting a lot more coverage now than it was. It was getting 0 coverage before. So this is good. But if we could all just share, it would be so nice. And I want to shout out also Legacy. I Am Legacy on X and on Instagram. She is actually the one that told us about this case initially. And also Nancy Grace has been amazing and doing episodes on Nikki. So yeah, there's been a support system, I guess, in the content creating and YouTube and media space, but gotta be more. There's gotta be more to keep the pressure on. So, oh, this is a good question, Sinead. Does anyone know Nikki's favorite color? That's a good idea. We can all do something like that. I don't know, but
you have to ask your sisters. I'm sure.
Yeah, we should ask. And there's also Facebook groups to join. Justice for Nikki is one of them. I'm in both of them. Kathy knows them. So if you want to throw those in the comments after this video has processed, that will be great as well. Oh, someone said purple. Okay, that's great. So maybe we could do something where, yeah, one day we all wear purple, we take pictures, and I don't know, anything just to support and keep the pressure on. Jarrett, you would look great in purple. So.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, so we're going to jump off a little early because my family is texting me and asking me where I am because we're on holiday, I guess, for the kids. They have a million days off of school, it feels like. So we'll be back next week. We'll probably be back on Thursday instead of Wednesday for next week, depending. But we'll keep you guys posted on X, or we'll put.
I watched all the Karen Reed stuff this week, so we'll talk about it next week. I don't know what my whole YouTube algorithm right now is Karen Reed. I must confess, it's crazy.
I don't want to talk about it anymore, Jarrett. I literally did one interview with the director and had to read the most ridiculous things about myself. I'm so done with this case. I am so done with this case where I'm like, why can no one just be normal about it? Like, I mean, I had to read that I was rolling my eyes when John O'Keefe's family was brought up. I read that I have fake empathy for people, and I'm just like, okay, I'm good. I'm good on this. I can't get anything right. So, yeah. Wait, what? He did? I didn't even know. Oh my gosh. See, now you drew me back in, MJ. What the hell? Geez, I had no idea. And thank you so much, Disney. I feel like depending on who you watch, you'll get different.
When does that documentary come out?
It's out. Like,
where?
It's on ID, and then it streams on Max the next day. So tonight is actually.
I'll check it out. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was out.
No, it's fine. It's the finale is tonight, and like
okay. I'll check it out.
I just said, I was like, I think that, just really briefly, and people in the chat, if you watched it, this is not good for Karen. I think her team really thought that she would be acquitted. I have no clue.
Don't spoil it on me. I didn't watch it yet.
But okay, last thing I'll say is some of the stuff she said, I was like, dude, Brennan's going to use this in his opening statement and his closing statement, because why wouldn't he? She said it. It came out of her mouth.
I had to defend it to an interview. I know you got to go, but I had to defend it to an interview with local news. I brought our major, like beloved news reporter in. He was my last witness in a prosecution, and I played that interview on a big screen. It was like the closing moment of the case, and she was convicted. That doesn't.
Oh my gosh. No, it really. Wait, I didn't know that. Wait, see, I totally missed this because I've been kind of not following her hearings. So I needed a break.
Oh boy, I shouldn't have brought it up.
No, it's fine. It just is like, and look, you guys know I don't care. I have thick skin. It's just, when you get these alerts and it's constant and it's like, wait, you just kind of think to yourself, well, did I do that? I don't think I did that, which is also why I initially gave Karen Reed grace, because, as a female, you're like, I don't think I did it, but whatever. I'm done rambling. Thank you, Sinead. I will breathe. And thank you, MJ. You're amazing. I'm going to go look this up. But anyway, like I said, I should go. We'll discuss all of this next week. We'll put a pin in it and I'll be ready. But for now,
you got it. And I'll check out I'm going to watch the documentary in the meantime. I hope. We'll see.
Please do. Okay, guys, have a good rest of the week. I know it's a little quiet for me with shows and everything because I'm away, but next week I'll be back towards the end of the week. So we'll be good. All right. Bye.
Happening. You're trying to figure out ultimately what is.
It's still a mystery as to why it took them